You're with Power Lunch here on NDTV. Profit in the market picture seems to be getting stronger, with the Nifty 50 at 78.87, up 21 points now, and clearly at today's high point. You've got the Sensex at 25,785, up nearly 0.4%. And the positive push has come through from the opening that we've seen in the European markets. We checked on the CAC 40 and the FTSE 100, and they're both up well over, 0.75% and in that territory. That's the market snapshot. I'd like to welcome at this stage Ritika Mankar Mukherjee, CFA, Senior Economist and Vice President at Ambit Capital. Thanks very much for joining us on NDTV Profit today. And, you know, I don't want to play the typical role that is assigned to the media, which is to sensationalize what bits you can, but it is quite intriguing because the Ambit Capital report suggests that you believe that the Indian economy has actually been slowing since the middle of FY15. On what basis are you saying this?
Right. So I think what we have been telling investors quite systematically is that expect GDP growth in FY16 to be weaker than FY15. FY17, we think the same GDP growth as 16 will be maintained. So you aren't dealing with a deceleration, but you will deal with an acceleration. All of this obviously doesn't tally with what you're hearing from the CSO numbers, which are obviously suggesting that in FY16, GDP growth accelerated by 40 bips versus the GDP growth rate you got in FY15. Which was 7.2%. The basis of us deviating meaningfully from what the CSO is saying is twofold. First and foremost, on the quantitative front, we have launched something called India's Qiqiang Index. So learning from China, which is known for not so believable statistical data at a national accounts level, we picked up a practice that Li Keqiang started in China, whereby he started using real economy indicators to gauge the performance of his province. We've done that same exercise for India. We've used real economy indicators provided by industry bodies, regulators, such as, say, bank credit growth, power demand, capital goods imports, commercial vehicle sales. Put that all together in one index, which basically shows a great degree of correlation with the old GDP series. And what that index tells me from a forward-looking perspective, based upon the live data I'm getting for these real indicators, is that since the middle of FY15, the Indian economy has been systematically losing momentum. So that's one quantitative gauge. The other quantitative gauge that we use is we track close to 16 real economy indicators separately on a QOQ basis, on a YOY basis. And even there, we can see that the second derivative for 8 of 16 indicators was negative in 4Q FY16, which basically tells you that the pace of improvement is slowing down. And that's the quantitative tools we use to gauge how the economy is doing. Separately, we also use qualitative gauges such as our meetings with senior policy experts in New Delhi. We also do tend to travel a lot into the interiors of various states of India. And even from those travels, we're broadly picking up the same picture that the broader economy in no way accelerated in FY16 versus FY15. In fact, since mid FY15, the Indian economy has been losing momentum.
You know, I just want to understand, and this will be beneficial for us and our viewers, the real economy indicators, just flesh them out. What are you tracking, which sort of, you know, we've talked about the proposition, but what are the real economy indicators that you're tracking?
Sure. So I think this includes practically everything and anything that you can think of in terms of data coming out of India. So just to give you examples, say things like commercial vehicle sales or cement demand are the kind of indicators that are doing really well. And obviously these are being used by a lot of optimists to say that, you know, these are green shoots of an incipient economic recovery. But other indicators which are more broad-based and more indicative of what's actually happening on the ground, such as, say, core CPI, core WPI, bank credit growth, particularly non-retail bank credit growth. Also, if you look at, obviously, exports growth, even after stripping off the petroleum component, all of these indicators continue to remain under significant duress, and arguably, like I said, core CPI, core WPI are more broad-based indicators, and that those two indicators are telling you that there isn't any meaningful pricing power in the economy. At an aggregate level, we're still in an excess supply situation. Sure, there are pockets of activities such as commercial vehicle sales and cement demand, but at the broader macro level, taking all sectors into account, you're still in an excess supply situation and nowhere close to an excess demand situation.
And you're right, the optimists are certainly sort of holding on to the commercial vehicles sales numbers and the cement offtake as an indicator of momentum building back in. I just want you to reflect a little bit on the the regional, and I beg your pardon if I'm pronouncing the name of the index wrong, the Keqiang index. I ask this because there is a reference, there's a reference to the state level data being quote-unquote dodgy.
Sure.
So just explain where the gaps at the state level are.
Sure. So recently you had the respective state level authorities release new GDP series for each of the states. And this data is still coming in. It's not entirely put together. But some of the very, very counterintuitive changes that were made according to the new GDP series at the state level were as follows. Number one, Gujarat's GSDP data suggested that YOY GDP growth for that state was restated upwards by close to, I think, 500 bips. That's the extent of the real GDP growth overestimation or perhaps restatement that was done. Similarly, Bihar's GDP growth was pulled down for FY13 by close to 700 bips. So from close to an 11% real GDP growth rate, that number was pulled down to something like 3%. And obviously you can imagine the extent of the changes that the new GSDP series is suggesting is dramatically changing the so-called assumed trajectory of growth in these respective states. And these are just a few examples that I highlighted to you that really stand out. And given once again that the state level GSDP data was seeming very, very volatile and counterintuitive at times, we thought, why don't we use the same Keqiang methodology at the state level? So basically we again used data from regulators, from industry bodies, wherever we could get state level granularity over a reasonable period of time and tracked that index over a period of time. So we put in things like bank credit growth, we put in things like power demand, cellular subscription and all of that, and basically created an alternative quantitative indicator which hopefully signals economic momentum better than the very volatile and unstable GSDP data.
How would you answer the skeptics who might argue that the regional Keqiang index is not comprehensive enough?
Like I said, I think what we have tried to do is look at it from a long-term time series perspective. So I'm not just looking at it for FY16 or FY15. I've tracked this index nearly for a decade now. So the entire noughties is something that we've tracked this index for. And over that period, this index does give me very intuitive signals. So the levels might obviously not be right, but when this index is picking up, I can tell that a host of other indicators are picking up, suggesting an acceleration in economic momentum and vice versa as well. So I have looked at this series from a decade's perspective, and it does seem in line with the intuition in terms of what you're seeing in terms of top line growth for companies, what you're seeing in terms of other indicators on the ground, and which is what gives me the confidence that, hey, I might not be getting the level of growth right, but I'm able to signal to you whether a particular region is gathering momentum or losing steam, which is what really matters to you and me.
You know, you've hit upon something which I wanted to touch, which is also the corporate earnings, the results scorecard. Also does seem, even just to people like us in the media, a little out of sync. Can you elaborate on the cues that you're getting from the earnings front?
Look, I think the quarterly data one shouldn't read that much into, but from a strategic perspective, from an annual perspective, we've seen this pan out not just one time but many times over. That typically when you start a year, analysts' estimates of EPS growth for the Sensex are extremely optimistic, and then they get pulled down as the actual numbers start coming in, as the actual indicators start coming through. So I think at this point consensus estimates are double digit, high double digits. So I think close to 20% is the earnings estimate for the Sensex at this point in time. We at Ambit are at a far lesser number at this point in time. So from a bottom-up perspective, we're close to about 12 to 13%. Our sense is that as the year goes by, as you realize that the monsoon cannot solve all our problems, as we realize that the banking system is dealing with some very serious problems, which could result in a credit freeze, a temporary credit freeze, which cannot be alleviated by the RBI pumping in liquidity or the RBI lowering policy rates. Our sense is that the consensus will converge towards Ambit's estimates, and that's really how we're seeing the year. Because there are three key headwinds we think that most of consensus is not building in from an FY17 perspective. Number one, remember the last 2 years central government capex was very, very supportive. It was significantly higher than the revenue expenditure this government was opting for. That dynamic has changed in FY17, and the same thing is being reflected from a state government budget's perspective as well. So headwind number one really is not adequate capex being undertaken by the central and state governments. Headwind number two is the fact that you won't have as much private equity and venture capital money coming into India. Remember, even though bank credit growth wasn't going anywhere, equity capital markets weren't going anywhere, the last 3 years saw nearly $50 billion of inflows coming through the PEVC route. That route is obviously not going to deliver as much money going forward. And number three, like I said, I think given the specific problems in the Indian banking system, what is relatively clear is that you will have to deal with a credit freeze for a bit. And that in turn means that you can't have an economic recovery come through. Remember, we are extremely dependent upon the banking sector as an economy. That's our main source of funding, more than 60%. And if that sector is undergoing certain specific dynamics, it's going to be difficult for the broader economy to pick up in that sort of an environment. So I think those are the three headwinds that give me confidence that in all likelihood, consensus earnings estimates will move downwards as the year goes along.
Well, Ritika Mankad Mukherjee, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we look forward to speaking with you much more frequently. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to focus on NIIT Limited results.